Keir Starmer's reset speech was a masterclass in arrogance, deflection, and political gaslighting. Let's break it down. Keir Starmer suffered brutal local election losses, walked onto a stage a couple of days later, and somehow still managed to behave as though the real problem is the British public. That speech was just astonishing. Not because it was inspiring, not because it was visionary. It's because of the sheer breathtaking arrogance radiating from it. Britain is angry, and Keir Starmer still does not seem to care why. The entire speech was built around the idea of a reset. There's that word again, Westminster's favourite little panic button. Whenever politicians fail, break promises, lose support, or get caught completely detached from public feeling, they suddenly announce a reset like they're reinstalling software instead of governing a country. But the moment journalists started asking actual questions, the whole performance collapsed. One journalist essentially asked why voters should trust him after Labour's disastrous local election results. It's a fair question, because if voters are abandoning you in large numbers, perhaps the issue is not messaging. Perhaps the issue is that people can see the direction of travel and they do not like it. But instead of humility, Starmer responded with the usual polished managerial waffle about delivering change, going further, and staying focused. Translation: please stop noticing reality while we continue the strategy. Another journalist pushed him on public anger around immigration and whether Labour had failed to understand the scale of concern across the country. And this is where the mask really slipped. Because rather than acknowledging that millions of ordinary people might have legitimate concerns about housing pressure, infrastructure strain, illegal migration, social cohesion, or the pace of demographic change, the implication was once again that public anxiety is being fueled by division, misinformation, or negativity. This is the modern political class in a nutshell. If people complain about declining living standards, we're impatient. If we complain about immigration pressures, we're divisive. If we question government priorities, we're populist. If we reject establishment parties, then we are angry or misled. It never seems to occur to these people that voters may simply have functioning eyes. That is why the speech enraged so many people, including myself. Not just because of policy, but because of the contempt underneath it. That cold, detached, almost corporate tone that says, we know what's best, the public just hasn't caught up yet. At one point, Starmer genuinely sounded less like a prime minister and more like a failing CEO, explaining to shareholders why collapsing customer confidence is actually proof that the long-term strategy is working beautifully. And then came the truly ridiculous part. Despite Labour taking a hammering in the elections, despite collapsing trust in mainstream politics, despite rising public frustration across almost every major issue facing the country, Starmer still projected this strange aura of moral and intellectual superiority, as if voters had inconvenienced him by reacting badly. That is political insulation at its purest. People are struggling to pay bills. Families cannot afford homes. Taxes rise while services decline. Communities feel unrecognizable to many residents. Trust in the police, media, and institutions has cratered. And Westminster's response is another polished lecture about renewal. We are exhausted by it. Exhausted by being spoken to like difficult children. Exhausted by slogans replacing honesty. Exhausted by politicians pretending visible problems are merely perception issues. exhausted by leaders who never seem capable of admitting failure without immediately blaming misinformation, social media, the opposition, or the public itself. That is why the reset speech failed. Because Britain does not need another rebrand. It needs accountability. And yesterday, Keir Starmer showed once again that accountability is the one thing the modern political class simply cannot tolerate. We, the public, sent a message in those local elections. And yesterday proved that he still thinks the public is the problem.